Is this on? Mr. Prime Minister,
Sayın Başbakan,
welcome to the Council on Foreign Relations.
hoş
And to the
geldiniz.
rest of you, let me tell you, you made a
Geri kalan
wise
herkes
decision
için
to spend
şunu
lunch
söyleyeyim.
with the Prime Minister
Öğlen
of
yemeği
Turkey today.
saatini Türkiye
I
Cumhuriyeti
can think of
Başbakanı'yla burada
none
geçirdik. Said that we're ready to provide any sort of training that we can for the security forces, either there or in Turkey, to the police or to the military. We've always expressed this. What's important is to, at the end of the day, overcome the problems that our neighbor Iraq faces. Now, with respect to your question about American troops going through Turkey, we would look at this positively. We would, of course, have to assess the situation as to the modalities of how that would have to work. First of all, the U.S. is a strategic partner for us, and we would look to see how we can help a process. Of course, we would do an evaluation and assessment, and then we would take whatever steps are necessary.
Thank you. A lot of hands out there, very little time. Bill, you're the tallest. We'll start with you.
Bill Drozdak. Mr. Prime,
Maybe we'll take 2 questions before you answer, because there's so many up there. Bill.
Mr. Prime Minister, latest opinion polls show that only 9% of the Turkish people have a positive view about the United States. Is this wave of anti-Americanism in your country entirely related to Iraq? Are there other causes? And what do you think needs to be done in order to reverse this trend?
Ken Roth.
Mr. Prime Minister, on the question of EU accession, French President Sarkozy has said that he sees no place for Turkey in the future European Union. What will you do to change his mind, to reopen the door? And what has been the consequence of the position of him and other European leaders for your efforts to create a civilian, rights-respecting democracy in Turkey?
Tepkisi ne oldu? First of all, on the question on the polls, 9% only being in or feeling friendly towards the Americans. We did not conduct any polls ourselves, but I know that there is a serious amount of anti-American sentiment, but I would say that this has to do mostly with Iraq. It's the policies in the Middle East. So this is mainly the reason, and I mean here the developments in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Iraq. So these are the issues which contribute to that situation. Another important point, of course, is the separatist terrorist organization, the PKK, and the fact that they can base themselves in northern Iraq. And recently, some American weapons were found in possession of PKK terrorists, small and heavy, all different types. And this has, of course, created some problem, and we were in fact challenged about this during the election by the opposition parties in Turkey. And in the PKK camps, unfortunately, some American weapons were found in possession of PKK terrorists, small and heavy, all different types. And this has, of course, created some problem, and we were in fact challenged about this during the election by the opposition parties in Turkey. And in the PKK camps, unfortunately, some heavy weapons, tanks and other weapon parties in Turkey. And in the PKK camps, unfortunately, some heavy weapons, tanks and other weapons, US-made, were found in the PKK camps. And the terrorists, when they were caught, it was also found out that they had American weapons parties in Turkey. And in the PKK camps, unfortunately, some heavy weapons, tanks and other weapons, US-made, were found in the PKK camps. And the terrorists, when they were caught, it was also found out that they had American weapons. And the American officials actually accepted the fact that they had those weapons. Some was said to have been left behind. It was said that some were smuggled by arms dealers and sold to the terrorists. But all of these developments, of course, had a very negative effect on the Turkish people. And we have not to date seen the stance, the position that we would like to see from the American side on this point. And of course we were discussing this, we expressed our expectations. In a very short time I will have a meeting with the President, and we've also talk about this. We've already spoken to the Secretary of State, and they told us that they would show the necessary sensitivity. Your other question about the French President Sarkozy and his statements about Turkey not being part of Europe. I spoke to President Sarkozy twice after his election, and then we had meetings where we had our advisors meet each other, and most recently here this week I had a meeting with him. President Sarkozy, I did not see an approach in him about Turkey not being part of Europe. In fact, he told me the opposite. He said that he supported Turkey's accession. Of course, I don't know the exact circumstances to the previous statements he made. I did not hear those directly. I just tell you now what I heard from him myself this week. And our foreign ministers will continue to work on this, and we have special advisors who are also in contact. And once they complete their work, I will visit President Sarkozy in Paris, and we will then discuss how we will proceed further.
That is very encouraging. I should say that among a very distinguished Turkish delegation here, we have Ali Babacan, who has been the chief negotiator with the European Union and is now also the foreign minister, and has done a wonderful job under very complicated circumstances. Yes, sir.
Mr. Prime Minister, critics of the AK party say you're trying to turn back secularism in Turkey, and they cite the example of a president's wife wearing the veil, for instance. Do you believe you're being subjected to a double standard, in the sense that in the West many leaders make a show of going to church or being religious, and there are faith-based charities at the core of policies? Do you feel that a double standard is being applied to the AK party in Turkey?